Yes, season 2026. Welcome back to On the Couch. New year, new challenges and new hopes and dreams for all of our 18 clubs. It is officially O-Week, Optimism Week for all of our 18 supporter bases. We only get to see a few of them this week, Geordie, but before we get into Optimism Week, I want to know what did the Lewis household get up to over summer?
Did you organise that?
It's new, isn't it?
It was an O-Week with
very
Michael,
tricky.
by the way.
I think Jared wanted more airtime.
No, we just spent time within Victoria. Spent a little bit of time in the Bull, in Warrnambool.
Bit of time up with me as well.
Bit of time up at Brownies. My boys think Jack Brown is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Really?
He's got his rat's tail.
That's an interesting hero, right?
He's got a gold chain, and he's the coolest thing they've ever seen.
No haircuts for Jack Brown and your kids. Brownie, what did you get up
Mate,
to?
it was a good time. Apart from trying to flick Louis' four boys off the back of the boat, had a very relaxing summer up on the Gold Coast. Very nice. I snuck over to the Super Bowl, which was a horrible game, but good experience. But great off-season with the kids. How are you, Bucks?
Bucks, casual
Nice and
season
quiet,
for you,
mate.
a nice summer one for you. What's been happening in Nathan Buckley's life over summer?
Well, I've been driving up and down the freeway, getting to G-Town and sinking my teeth into the new role, which I've enjoyed.
How have you found? Well, you've only been a Collingwood person. You've been at Collingwood and Fox Footy.
No, I was at Brisbane Bears.
Brisbane for a little bit, but that's a long time ago.
Teddy Bears,
a long
mate.
time ago. But now you're in a new environment. You're at Geelong. You're an assistant coach. How have you found heading down to the Cattery?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, you wouldn't think that you were... I was listening to Chris and Vossi talk about how long they've been in the game and sort of, light and shade. But you wouldn't have think you'd been in the game for 30 years and then be so energised and refreshed by walking into a new environment with a new group of people. It's like going to a new school. You sort of got to learn about everyone, sort of build relationships and then go from there. So, yeah, it's been great. Like the players are engaged, coaches are hardworking, open-minded, and the thing that strikes me about Geelong is how creative their leadership is. That's probably the reason that I'm there.
Well, just quickly, though, let's reset. We know it happened 6 months ago, but why did you go back into coaching? What was it? What do you think the main lure was?
Well, I really enjoy sitting next to you and talking to you guys on a Monday, so I've been able to keep that. But, look, the media stuff is great, but if any of us had a choice, we would be players again. And if you can't be players, I think you can get as close as you can to that, and that's being a part of an AFL organisation in some shape or form. I know coaching, and I've had some experience with it, and had a look at Melbourne, late last year, and I've been engaged in the Tasmanian Devils process, and I determined that I wanted to be a part of a footy club again, and I'd love to senior coach again. So I don't know whether the latter will happen, but I had an opportunity with the former when Geelong knocked on the door and we were able to work it out. So I'm loving being back involved in it.
For us that don't get the opportunity to be inside clubland, you obviously are most recently retired. Has it changed? Has the language changed? Has the way that you educate changed in that short period of time?
Well, I don't know. I think the way you educate has shifted in some shape or form, but it's very hard to compare because the environment is not the same environment. If I'd have gone back into the same environment, you'd be able to say, well, the game has changed in this, in this way or that way, and X number of %. But because you're in a new environment, it's really hard to adjudicate that. But Geelong definitely do it differently from what I'd known, whether it's in their environment, whether it's with their division or their line meetings or their main meetings, their pre-season, the engagement of their medical and conditioning staff with the players. It's just slightly different. So I don't know if the game has shifted that much, although I know that it has, but it's probably more the environmental change and how different that is.
Bucks, how does this work? It's an interesting setup now. You're obviously a full-time assistant coach at Geelong, and now you're still going to be a member on the couch. You would have put a lot of thought into the decisions that you have made and sitting here now week in, week out on a Monday. How does it play out? Because it's a fascinating thing that we've probably never seen in footy before.
Yeah, I don't think we have seen much of it, but I don't know exactly how it does play out. I know that I'm more on the positive side and finding things that are working, with clubs in the past, and my opinions have been, probably more measured than some in the media. I probably wouldn't be able to do it if I was more pointed or on the negative or critical side. But I don't think that my analysis of the game will be diminished much at all. There will be an impact on how much I could perhaps talk about Geelong, given that I've got insider information on that. But I probably wouldn't speak any differently than maybe Chris would about Geelong when he's on 360. So, but that will be a suck it and see, and I'm pretty much know that I'm big enough and ugly enough to be able to cope.
He'll give us all the insight. Don't worry about that. But before we move on, you're the defensive coach. Will you be leaning into your experience when you played on Wayne Carey at centre half back one day?
If having played as a defender is important, which I'm not sure if it is, but yeah, I've had enough of an experience.
You got 8 on you, didn't you?
Rebounding defender.
Philosophically, I'm a defence first coach, so I'm pretty happy to be in that line, and I've got some guns in there too, so I'm pretty happy with that.
You certainly do, Bucks, and we've got some guns on the couch. Absolutely wrapped. You're going to be joining us this year on the couch. Let's go big topics in our first segment here, and I want to start with you, Louis, because you've got the back-to-back premiers in your sights.
Well, I think they're an interesting watch in a sense that both you and I have been lucky to be involved in premiership success and teams and clubs who have done it for a long period of time, and that is always a challenge for any side that has been up there. The scary thing for me, it seems like the gap might be widening between Brisbane and the rest of the competition. And I think the more you look into player retention, which they've been able to do, which they've had issues with in the past, so they've got the right players in and the right personalities in there and competitive personalities. Player retention and also what's coming up underneath. And I think when you're a successful team, one of the things that you neglect is the ability to play younger players. They just have to bide their time, maybe 3-4 years underneath, to then be able to get into a position to play. So if you put up their best 23 that will roll out this year without any injuries, only 4 of those players are over 30. 4 players over 30, which is Zorko, Neil, Lester and Cameron. Of the 23, they're over 30. So the players that miss, you could make an argument that they would fit into nearly any side in the competition if they were fit and firing. So you've got a healthy list. You've got a list that's got a little bit of experience, but no sort of 35s, 36-year-olds that are there. Last year's grand final side, 12 players of the grand final side were 26 and under from the grand final side. So you've got an array of talent, and there's been arguments that they've been gifted those players, but through father-son and through the other means. The other thing that I'll say on Brisbane is if you look at their list demographic and what they really possess, they've got an abundance of forwards, an abundance of midfielders, but one of their powerful positions is their running half-backs and the kickers off their half-back line. And the rule that has just been tightened this year, the stand-the-mark rule, they will be...
handball receives.
Promoting handball receives, promoting not necessarily the player backing off from the man on the mark and going forward with speed and precision. There will be no more better exponents than that particular man on the mark rule than Brisbane.
I think we saw that the other night too. I thought they really exploited Gold Coast's, lack of their ability to defend, really. And that's
10 players. How many players they have missing in that game?
They had a lot of players missing, but yeah, I agree. I think that rule alone has actually enhanced Brisbane even further because it adds an extra element to their ball movement, which clearly they've been the best team in the comp at that.
We saw that halfway through 24, which gave them a chance to run into their first flag and then into their second. Obviously, we look at that, every premiership team, we go, OK, well, they're the ones to beat. But you've got them. How much do you see them improving by that other teams need to catch?
Well, I think that rule alone would give them an extra 5%. Just that rule alone, which again puts them in a really position. And I think the other thing internally, which is hard to get as well, is premiership players and non-premiership players. So the motivation from those players to become a part of the conversation in and around the locker rooms.
Well, it'll be a dynasty for Brisbane if they win another one.
Yeah,
they want to be a part of that, whether it's 1, 2 or 3.
Absolutely. And then the players who have played then want to reward their mates who might have missed out. So you look at the way that they play, and even on the weekend, it was a practice match, getting themselves ready for the game. But you look at the acts and the desperation of younger players coming in who want to rock up on a Monday and see their name or the vision put up. So you see here young Curtin, who was just Polak's on the wing here, Dan Riewoldt, probably knows that he's got him for speed, but just didn't give up. This was a minute and a half to go in that game. So that type of desperation in a club that has already been successful has just filtered through from the top.
How hyper-vigilant does Chris Fagan have to be about anything creeping in that might upset just the balance and the hunger to go back to back to back? Is that a huge watch?
Well, I think with the group that he's got and the character and the personalities, I would be really surprised if that was ever an issue. Now, there will be a little peak and trough throughout the season, but I think once again they're a scary proposition for any team.
Do the off-season reports and what's happened in Brisbane's off-season worry you at all about that playing group and the steadiness of it?
No. They've been able to put that to the side in past their USA trip, which was well documented. So they've had that ability. I think part of the reason is they're up in Brisbane, so they probably don't get the media scrutiny down here, as Brownie would know. So,
well, there was a fair bit of it in the off-season.
Wasn't there?
A fair bit of it made north. It was
just the one paper.
Yeah, just keep going and going and going. But yeah, I agree. You know, I think they'll and mainly it only affected one player. So obviously we'll speak about Lockie in a second. But
did you
the
see
playing group
that?
was able to move on.
I just think that they're the things that creep in. And
no, but Brisbane.
Do I see Brisbane as the best team at the moment?
By a while.
I think they're the best team by a fair way at the moment. It's only early. Well, we haven't started the season yet as well, but they're the team to catch. Big time. You mentioned Lockie Neil Brownie. John Ralph's in the newsroom, and he has some news about the contract of the Brisbane superstar.
Hello guys. So the accepted wisdom is that he will play out the season, he'll jump on a plane and he will be playing for a WA-based club next season. I can tell you tonight that Neil's preferred outcome is still very much playing at this football club next season. So it'll require a supreme juggling act. It will require him to, of course, see his kids through across this season. That's going to be challenging, but Brisbane and Neil are very much trying to make it work until the end of the season after his marriage breakup. So he'll spend time with his daughter across the next couple of weeks. He'll spend around 2 in Perth. There's a 9-day break after gather around. So there are possibilities there. Brisbane has told him that they will make it effortless for him to play with a WA-based side next year if that's what he wants. It was Neil who actually approached his old club Fremantle at the end of 2021 when he was considering coming back. He was the one that approached them. And so certainly it did not end on fantastic terms with that football club, but they're aware of the fact that, of course, he is a potential candidate for them next year. West Coast would likely blow them out of the water with a superior financial offer. Right now, all options open. Staying, going, even potentially retiring. But until he's shown that the current situation can't work, I think he's still really open to staying with Brisbane next year. Brownie, how have you seen the summer go through work, and how do you see the season unfolding?
I think they just focus on this season. He obviously wants to be part of a dynasty team. He's been a big part of it already. So I think just focus on 2026 and then they worry about next year towards the back end of the season.
And Ralphie, not even into round one or opening round, and we've already had a retirement, and it's from the Melbourne Demons.
Yeah, that's right. And Stephen May was very much forced into retirement by Melbourne over the last couple of days. They made very clear to him that there was no situation in which he would not be a significant distraction for the footy club and also the new coach in Stephen King. So it involved really emotional meetings over the last couple of weeks, a significant payout, effectively the whole base component of his salary, some of the potential incentives. So over $500,000. He pushed back against it initially. He thought that he could play his way onto this team and wouldn't play VFL across the whole year. He'd fight his way into the seniors, but it was very crystal clear to him by the end that that would not be the scenario. So they'll pay $500,000 for May, about $650,000 for Clayton Oliver until 2030, an increasing slice of Angus Brayshaw's salary to 2028. But they're adamant that their salary cap is in a really good position, and I think we all agree that finally Stephen King has a lack of distractions and some really clear air, which is so important for a young coach.
Thanks very much, Ralphie. Well, it's a good segue into what seems to be a decision made about culture bucks, and you've got that as your topic for season 2026.
Yeah, I think there's enough evidence to suggest, in modern footy at least, when you're building a list, that sometimes you need to cut people that aren't, or let people go that aren't happy, to make sure that the locker room is in good shape to be able to build, from a really, an idea of gratitude and a humbleness and a want to commit to team. About 12 months ago, made the comment about Carlton that I thought some of their higher talented players were a little inconsistent, and I just reckon that that might have been a reflection on not just the culture of the place, but maybe a little bit about the locker room and whether players were actually happy at the club. And clearly, with a little bit of inside information, that's what it looked like at Melbourne as well. For the 12 months with Christian Petrarca and Clayton Oliver. We've seen the stance that Melbourne have taken. Charlie Curnow wanted to move and Carlton have allowed that. I expect that both Melbourne and Carlton will be harder to beat this year than they were last year, with less talent on the page. But I think with a blanker canvas, Melbourne with a new coach, I think Vossi with a fresh opportunity to start with a younger group, with a more dynamic group, probably less predictable. But I think that you send a shot across the bow with list management decisions. And I think the locker rooms of both Melbourne and Carlton are in better shape to be able to attack the season, even though on any measure you'd look at the talent and say they've probably taken a hit.
How hard's that decision for Michael Voss, though, to let Charlie Curnow go? Because in their leadership group, arguably in their top 2, maybe 3 players, you're letting generational talent walk out. And then the return, and then they get to see him first up in opening round. It's a really difficult decision to make.
It's great fixturing by the AFL, first and foremost, isn't it, to make that the opening game of the season. And they've just leaned into it. But I think this is hopefully it's a win-win. It's clear that Curnow needed a refresh. He wasn't getting the best out of his talent. And Sydney might be the answer for him, a little bit away from the bright lights of Melbourne, and a fresh opportunity. So Sydney would be welcoming that, and maybe Charlie feels like he gets an opportunity to clean slate to build his, the back end of his career and what that looks like. And clearly Carlton, I think, they were able to get some players in who have stood up already in pre-season and look like they're going to add to the depth of Carlton's run through the midfield. Hayward and Florent and an early pick, which gives them an opportunity to really have a crack at this. I think Carlton will be better, and I'm pretty sure that Sydney are happy with their lot as well.
And just quickly back on Melbourne there. So, does it tarnish those boys' legacies, Stephen May, Petrarca, and Oliver? That it looks like from the outside that the club wanted to get rid of them. Does it tarnish their legacy? They're premiership players at that club.
Yeah.
And arguably great to the club.
Yeah. I think as a player, you always want to feel wanted, and certainly by the club that you've been successful at. Now, I think all of those boys would put their hand up and say they didn't do their absolute best to be a good teammate, to remain at the club, to buy into what the club needed. Will it tarnish their reputation? I don't think so in the long term, but no doubt their confidence. Having a club where they'd played and been successful at, not wanting them, I think that hurts the ego of every player.
It's clear that there was relationship challenges too. There was friction, and whether the change of coach was going to be enough. Melbourne had dictated that, and this was in part of our chats as well. They dictated that they were going to make personnel decisions, and they followed through with that to their credit. Everything that they suggested was going to happen has happened through list management, and you can only give them kudos to that because, and their early season, it's only pre-season games, but their early season form, pre-season form has been different, excellent, smaller, faster, and more engaged across the board, it seems. So, early season games will be the...
Well, both clubs seem to be rowing in the same direction, don't they? They're all rowing together. So
let's look at the flip side of that, though, and something that I want to focus on is a club that's held a superstar to their contract, and it seems like it's been a bit of a car crash for the Essendon Football Club and Zach Merritt. There was a saga through the trade period, right down to the final wire where we saw Tom Petroro in pretty devastating scenes at Marvel Stadium, not being able to get that deal over the line. Fascinating the way it all finished up. Mason Redman, who was a part of the club's leadership group, saying that he didn't trust didn't trust in Zach Merritt and what was going there. And the aftermath of everything that's happened with Merritt, Geordie, it leaves me in this position that we get reports that Zach is open to extending his contract past 2027. If I'm an Essendon supporter and I hear those sorts of comments from my ex-captain, a man who's wanted away from my football club, I think in 8 months' time we're going to be in exactly the same position.
Well, how as a teammate would you feel?
Well, I think Mason Redman summed it up. I have a complete lack of trust in him as a player. And, I mean, none of us here would say Essendon would make the final 10. So they're going to be in exactly the same situation. Zach Merritt's going to be a year older. Potentially his trade value's going to come down. And I feel like we're going to be having this same conversation in eight weeks' time. And he's going to be asking, 8 months' time, sorry, and he's going to be asking for a trade again. And we're going to be going, Zach Merritt wants away again.
Well, I think this year you'll see the value and maybe the way to do it, because it's the Petrarca conversation, it's the Oliver conversation that happened last year, and I think you're right. I think I've said how I feel about it. If a player ever signals that they want to leave, you try as much as you possibly can to get the deal done.
Do you think they missed a trick? Bucks, 3 first-rounders and Henry Huswaite seems like a reasonably fair deal, I would have thought, for a midfielder who's in his 30s that might have a handful of years left that probably aren't going to be at his absolute prime. And potentially this is going to leave Hawthorn in a very similar situation. They've missed out on the player that they did target.
Well, you can put Rowan Marshall in that.
Jai Simpkin as well.
Jai Simpkin potentially. So not as high profile players, but definitely players that potentially were wantaways and would have preferred to go to other clubs, but were held against their preferred outcomes by the existing clubs. So I think this is modern footy. We've got to accept this. Whilst I've just argued around a happy locker room, there's no, like, Essendon could still find themselves as a happy locker room if there's maturity on both sides, and we won't know the outcome of that before we get down the track a little bit. And that's going to be a product of what both the Essendon coaching staff, senior coach in particular, and Zach Merritt, how they go about it. That could work, but we've seen recent history of it not working. So there clearly has been a bit of work to do, and we'll find out what that looks like when they hit the.
I don't see a player though in Zach Merritt. His personality, his character, he's giving you 100% all the time. So he's going to contribute. He's going to contribute all year.
It's more than that.
But I don't think Essendon have had the expectation though. Like Melbourne and Carlton, the two clubs we're talking about with their players, they've had expectation in finals. No one's expected Essendon to be performing in finals the last couple of years, and probably don't expect them this year.
Yeah.
So I expect his output to still be at the same level. We saw it in the Origin game. His output was very high. I expect that to be very high, and so I think the teammates start coming along again with you.
But do you expect Essendon to play finals?
No, I don't.
Well, if they're in that position, why would they have not traded away to prepare for when they are expected to play finals? It's certainly going to be a very interesting watch, as is Zach Butters over at Port Adelaide. Brownie, you're on one of our new additions, Wildcard round.
I love it. I think it's a great addition, Wildcard round, and like a bit of extra entertainment during that bye weekend, 2 games. But if you actually look at it last year, let's maybe have a look at the way it would have worked out if there was a wild card last year, and I think it came very close. At the end of 24, the AFL were going to bring it in. They decided against it. I think they wish they had have the way the season panned out, because very early on it was down to 9 teams really. If the wild card was in place during that week off pre-finals last year, this is the way it would have looked.
There was a clear gap as well between 10th and 11th here as well.
That's right. People's First Stadium, Gold Coast, Sydney. And then Hawthorn Bulldogs at the MCG. Now, how good's that? That would have been outstanding. And I'll make a couple of arguments. The main one being, if the Bulldogs had beaten Fremantle last year in the last week in the round 24 game, Fremantle would have missed the finals with 15 wins. Now, I don't think if you have 15 wins in our competition, you deserve to miss the finals. I think that's been a good enough season. It's a long, arduous season. And the other thing is, there's so many inequalities in our draw. So we need to smooth out our fixture. So I think the difference between 7th and 10th is not much at all. So, I'm happy for that to sort of help smooth out the fixturing to the point where Brisbane was in a perilous position. They nearly missed the finals because they had by far the hardest fixture of any team in the competition last year. Now, clearly they were the best team. So, if nothing else, just a couple of those points, I think that's why it's a good reason for wildcard, as well as we're in the entertainment business, boys.
Well, the Bulldogs won it from 7th back in 2016. Is that dead, though, aside winning it from 7th, 8th and 9th and 10th? You're going to miss a bye week. Every other side in the top 6 is going to get a bye. Top 4 will still get the week off. Plus, you've got to win 5 games to win the flag.
Well, that's right.
Basically diluting the finals down to really only 6 teams that can win it.
Well, who knows? You might be able to go on a run. And I'll tell you what, if you go on a run from 10th and win 5 weeks in a row, good luck to you. You deserve to be holding the Premiership Cup.
we don't have any levels of sort of alternate success in our game. You either win the flag or you failed. Like we don't.
Yeah.
I know as a player, like you guys have felt it, but as a player, every year you didn't win it, it was hard to gain satisfaction out of it. And I think that trails into the supporter groups. I think that for some clubs, making a wildcard game or final, if you want to call it that, and potentially winning one. For Gold Coast sneaking into the finals and them to win that final, we were in those rooms afterwards, and that was like
it's fantastic,
absolute success. Like to be able to jump that hurdle and to be able to break ground that they hadn't broken before. I still think it's a great idea to introduce new levels of success. You know, so if you have been a side that hasn't played finals for a while, you get in a wild card round or you get into the finals into the second or the third week and maybe go on a run from 9th or 10th, that might be success in itself. So I just think exposure to these big games and adding as many as we possibly can, I don't have a problem with it at all.
Do you consider it a final, Brownie, the wildcard weekend? Are coaches coaching in finals that might hit trigger clauses, players playing in finals that might hit contract trigger clauses that haven't been factored in?
No, they're good points. I think the AFL's declared it as finals. It's semantics for me, you know. Like, is it a final, is it not a final? I don't care. At the end of the day, I think it's a better result. And at the end of the day, I think the AFL will overhaul the fixture anyway when Tasmania comes in. So this is just a look into what they would have been doing, and it helps cut out dead rubber games late in the season. There's too many dead rubbers late in the year.
Well, it used to be a Final Four or a Final Five way back when, so it changes all the time. So unless we want to be the dinosaurs, let's
call it a Final 10.
Oh, I'm looking forward to getting Lee Matthews' thoughts on the wildcard weekend. The great man, Brownie's old coach, joins us this year, and he joins us next Monday.
The thing about history. It never reveals itself before the fact. It comes unannounced in moments.
Oh my God!
Slivers of time that leave you and I breathless. One moment could spark the dawn of a new era. It could break the drought. It's becoming the best, staying the best.
The main man again!
Welcome to season 2026, where every moment matters. First up Thursday, the season openers bound for the Harbour City. Swans unleashing their new spearhead, Charlie Curnow.
Wow! Awesome from Charlie.
Colours look a bit different on you, mate. They bring out your eyes.
Sydney's prize recruit set for an immediate navy blue reunion.
The Baggers are back.
That's right, Carlton. How will Vossi's men fare with the pressure spotlight shining ferociously on them in 2026?
Great start. Great start.
Friday night footy returns to the Gold Coast. Dimmer's Suns bursting with belief. Now throw in this bloke, Christian Petrarca.
There's none better.
Look out, here come the forever contending Cats, ready to break the shackles of a September shocker. Super Saturday. How we've missed our exclusive Super Saturdays. And what a way to kick it off in 2026. The Giants and the Hawks, both with bellies full of hope.
Got to work for him. Got to work.
Leading into the Gabba, our first look at the reigning champs, the Lions. How about these Lions? Eyes now firmly set on equaling the greatness of Lethal's Invincibles. Up against Bevo's Bulldogs.
Work, great intensity.
So much firepower. With third generation, son of the West, Sam Darcy.
Oh, fantastic.
And of course, the Bont. How good is Marcus Bontempelli?
You need the full body.
Wrapping up with a Sunday ticket showstopper at the G, St Kilda and Collingwood. And have a look at these two wonderkinds, Nasiah Wanganeen Malira and Nick Dacos, two gunslingers that stare down the barrel of big moments and rise to them.
The Dacos difference!
So finally, here we go. Season 2026, the moments, slivers of time, the making of history. They're ready, and so are we. 218 games wrapped in peerless opinion and analysis, with a healthy dose of fun along the way.
Anything is possible on a day that they will never, ever forget.
Right here on Fox Footy.
It's good to have you back.
Ah, yes, welcome back to On the Couch. And boys, I nearly want to run straight through the banner on the G and get it rolling out on opening round, but
He's got a good voice, Matty.
He's got a great voice, Matty.
Did you get bumped this year? Did you do that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I'm happily bumped as
Not
well.
husky
It's a
enough,
hard
Brownie?
job. No, not husky. Not enough scotches and darts.
Scotches and darts. Oh, that's
How good is it,
that's
though?
the key to being a voiceover person. Scotches and darts. All right, well, this is one of the things that the fans bemoan at the start of every season is rule changes. And they go, why do we change the game? But the game looks like it's in great shape. But one rule, Geordie, after there's probably just a bit over half a dozen, is the ruck rule. And it's one that has caught clubs and it's certainly caught rucks off guard a little bit with the way they've worked at it over the summer. How have you seen that rolling out in the Amy Community Series so far?
I think it's found its level. I ran into Max Gorn the other day, and it's unlike ruckman to overthink a specific rule. And but there was some confusion, and he put it to me like, imagine someone 110 kilos running at you, and you're trying to make decisions with the new rule in place. But it seems like already every player is like this, but it seems already the players, the ruckman in particular, have adjusted. When Greg Swan read out those stats before, that seems like a pretty good result. That a rule that's been in for a couple of months.
Well, you mentioned Greg Swan. He joined the boys on AFL 360 and he had this to say about the new ruck rule.
The ruck rule's been probably the one where we've had most feedback. So we had, even on the week, so we had 267 centre clearances. They're jumping at 95%. So really happy about that. So it went from about 20-odd% now jumping at, you know, that sort of percentage. And there was only 7 frees given out of that many contests.
We can see there 297 ruck contests in the centre of the ground, 95% jumping, which I think we all agree is what we want to see. The 7 free kicks are the talking points, and certainly we are wired to look at the negative. And I mean, there is certain situations that will come up early days. This one here was deemed as it should have been play on by Greg Swan as he spoke to Jared and Gary on AFL 360. And what was Brodie thinking here, Bucks?
Well, that's common sense now. So that'll be play on. He obviously tricked him into it.
Well, part of the role of a player is to understand the rules and see if you can use them to your advantage. So we will see ruckman continue to try and find workarounds with this rule, just as a way we're going to find, you know, teams will get the stand rule, trying to find workarounds and how to utilise that to their best endeavours. But that's the centre bounce shift, and I think that will evolve over the first 3 or 4 weeks. Thing for me is that we changed the rules at one stage for centre bounces to prevent players jumping at each other so that we didn't have as many PCL injuries. Yeah. And that was addressed by Swanee on 360. But
if they're shorten the runner.
If they're jumping 95% of the time, I think I think let's hasten slowly with this, because I think we will see, we're likely to see some more collision injuries from that for the ruckman if they're going to be jumping 95% of the time. With that, is it just one ruckman jumping, or do both jump to get that 95%? It'd be interesting to see where.
However, though, I think it's worth the risk, because it was unacceptable what our centre bouncers and now had turned into. It used to be one of the great spectacles in our game, and it had become like an ugly boil on the side of your nose. Hopefully I haven't got any of those, Bucks, with the stress you're under this year. But, like our game had deteriorated badly, so, you get your head around that, mate.
I was wondering where you're going with that, mate.
But, I think it's good, and I think Greg Swan's going to use common sense to help guide us through these early parts of the round, while you might have a few little loopholes or players exploiting loopholes.
How good is it to have Greg Swan in the position that he's in? The interview tonight on 360, he just reassures you that he's got a good football person making football decisions.
Yeah, I think he's going to have the communication's the big thing, isn't
Yep.
it? So the communication with clubs, which is the main thing, they're out there putting the show on. So I think that's key, and that's probably something that's been a little bit lacking the last few years.
The other thing that I didn't think too much of that I thought would be more of an advantage to clubs, and it'd be interesting to get your opinion over this, is the 23rd man and managing the minutes and how you actually utilise that. I think from sitting on the outside, I thought, well, they've got another player to utilise, but is that going to be a challenge?
Well, the interchange cap hasn't changed. So you've got 23 players rotating through the same number of rotations. So the numbers that the Cats have done and every club would have done is, I think the average time on the pine was going to be was 3.5 to 4 minutes. So sometimes it'd be, you have rotated, might be 2, sometimes it might be stretched out to 6, but the average was around 4 minutes. I think that's gone out to between 6 or 7 minutes as an average for a rotation time. That's if players...
Is that a big jump? I mean, it doesn't...
Would have thought so.
Yeah.
Like, the thing, you've got 18, still got 18 on the field, but now you're rotating through the same number of rotations with 23. So the interesting thing will be, how do clubs handle that extra player? So pretty much it's the sub who now is
Could they use it as a sub?
Well,
Is there the option to hold a player over to maybe after half-time and use them?
There is that option. Now, it's an impact player. What is a particular aspect of the game that we feel we might need support in, or that we feel that we can take advantage against the opposition? Maybe a weakness that we can attack. It might be a running player, it might be a marking player, it might be someone that you want to hold back through the first half and introduce more in the second half. I think that there's a multitude of ways that clubs will use that 23rd, given that there's a big impost on the other 22 by putting that player into rotations with an interchange cap. You're going to have players who are going to play a whole lot less time or be on the pine for longer. Dane Swan back in the day would rotate 15 times, 16 times, or 15, 20 times a game to be able to get him on for 4 or 5 and then off for 2, on for 6 or 7, then off for 2. We don't get that opportunity now with the interchange cap, so how sides handle that's going to be interesting.
It's going to be a fascinating tactical watch. Well, we had the AAMI Community Series over the weekend, and wins are more important to some teams than other in the Community Series. And North Melbourne had a 1-point win over the Collingwood Football Club, and their champion Harry Sheasel spoke to our Eddie Betts after the game.
To get a win for our group, it's obvious that we haven't really won many games in a long time now, so just to practice that winning feeling, and just, I know it's pre-season and people are going to say, oh, it doesn't mean that much, but we were pretty embarrassed after last week, our showing against Melbourne, so to come out and get a win and take some belief going into the season, can't do any harm.
You see Harry Sheasel there talking to Eddie Betts about the win, and this was the moments at the final siren, North Melbourne players celebrating the win there. And I think some viewers would look at this and go, why are you celebrating winning an AAMI Series game? But for a club, Geordie, that has won 3 games, and 5 games over the last 3 years under that man there, Alistair Clarkson, wins are few and far between. And who's to say where a winning culture starts? I quite enjoyed the way North Melbourne celebrated, especially the way they played in their last 2 minutes in their situation drills.
Yeah, well, it's probably less about external expectation because... unless you get blown out of the water, there's probably no criticism externally, but certainly internal. And the conversations that have been coming out of that football club this week, and certainly the players in their interviews, were that there was genuine disappointment by the way that they
got read the riot act.
They clearly had. So the internal expectation came out after the game, albeit 1 point, albeit against an undermanned Collingwood. There was an element of relief. No doubt.
You talk about expectation. They have got the softest draw of all time in the first 6 weeks, Bucks. Yeah. You look at some of the teams that they're going to be playing against here. What's a pass mark for North Melbourne there against basically? I mean, other than Brisbane, I think 5 teams that were in the bottom 7 last year.
So if you look at last year, we're going to say that I think Carlton are going to be better. I think Port Adelaide. That's a tough first up ask. With Josh Carter, your first game as a senior coach, and the way that Port have performed, and obviously you got the Brisbane Lions in there. No game is going to be easy for North Melbourne. So to try and project that they should be 3-3 or they could win 4 or 5 of those, I think that's overs. Let's just see how they go. I thought their celebration over the weekend was largely around how the last 2 or 3 minutes was played. Collingwood wanted to win that game. Didn't matter who was there or who wasn't there. Both teams wanted to win that game, and one team ended up winning it and getting it done. So I think that's to be celebrated and enjoyed by that group, because it is a habit that you want to get into, especially Yeah, I don't think it mattered that it was a practice game. Both teams were trying to win,
and they
were able to get it done.
And they fought back. They were down by a pretty big margin.
31 points.
Yeah, 31 points. And I know Collingwood had some players out.
Well, what about Collingwood though, Brownie? Is that a worry? Like you mentioned, they had some players out. They've got 8 of their best players out, and you can see that list there. Potential starters. It's probably even more than that. You're looking at 10 players there. Only a couple rested. 2 injured there. So
worrying
Darcy
in what
sense? Well, they've got a game in 6 days' time. It is your last tune-up. If you're...
But that is
let's
part of
say,
the reason, isn't it? If there's a game in 6-7 days' time from your last game, that's reason to rest.
But if you're Scott Pendlebury, would you want to play?
Yeah,
get going?
but everyone's different. I think the team
can't have 8 players being different though, Brownie.
Yeah, well, Brisbane did it. Brisbane did it the other night. Now, they had a really good win, but... You know, and part of the reason they didn't want to get players injured before their big game against the Bulldogs on Saturday night. So I think Collingwood would have been in a similar situation. We don't know how much teams have done match simulation throughout the season. And at the end of the day, the most important thing is having the healthiest list you can at the start of the season.
We've got short memories too. 12 months ago, Collingwood played everyone through pre-season and compounded against the Giants in their first game and looked like they were shot, remember?
Yeah. So, Nick Dacos cramped.
Yeah, well, so they've changed up the way that they prepare for their first game this year to do better.
It's going to be a fascinating watch. Sunday opening round against the Saints. We're going to grab a quick break here. After this, it is the good, the bad and the ugly. Good to see the graphics team didn't do much over the summer, did they?
Still ugly.
Still the good, the bad, and, of course, the ugly. And, Brownie, you're going to kick us off with your good.
Yeah, Origin, loved it. It was great to see it back. State v State. The mighty Big V against the Sandgropers. A lot of WA people, the younger generation, don't even know what Sandgropers are. So had to educate them over there. It was a good game of footy. Western Australia fought back late. But the Vics hung on for a resounding featuring close to 60,000 people. I loved it. Hopefully it's back next year.
Mine's young man Jagger Smith, who's up close and personal on last Wednesday night. At times I thought that Zach Butters is probably the closest, and I don't know if he's got his physicality, but he's definitely got his fast feet and his vision and his ability to change angles and even to angle his kicks in different ways, as Vossi mentioned. But yeah, we missed out on him for the last 12 months, but I think we're going to be beneficiaries of it.
Might be a new king of Lygon Street there. Tom Lemyers is mine. He's interesting story, this. He was a Collingwood staff member. Then he was picked up last week in the SSP rookie list. He ran out in Jackson Archer's 34 because they didn't have the 39 ready yet. And he was sensational. He had 24 disposals. I'd expect him to be there in round 1 for North Melbourne. Great story, SSP signing for North.
Mine's Port Adelaide. Give it a little bit of love to Port Adelaide and their performance over the weekend. In particular, Mitch Georgiadis. He had his kicking boot on. He looked lively up forward. He was presenting really well. So he had the 3 in the second quarter, which he totally dominated, then 2 in the third, then just put the cue in the rack by the fourth. But he looks set for a big season.
Origin player too. Kenny, they've got long memories.
The bad this is.
The Hawthorn supporters as a bad. Have a look at this young fella.
How lippy.
Hey,
Smart
lippy. I'm pretty sure Port won that night though, didn't they?
I think
Why are you lipping off,
did,
young Hawks, man?
Kenny lost 20 large that night too, remember?
Yeah, he did too.
All right, Bucks, the bad?
Yeah, the bad for me was the rooms for the Giants after their pracky match at Henson Park. So we saw tropical cyclone Alfred turned. So maybe we've got our heavy rains out a week earlier than round 0, so we can actually get some games this year.
Cost us round 0, didn't it?
Oh, we've always got to show bad kicking, and in this particular instance, there was Sharman. So I don't think we've got the commentator's curse, but they nearly marked it down. They said it should be a goal and just comes off the side of his boot. You won't get many easier goals or set shots than that.
Well, it's time.
Shank.
That could have nearly got into the ugly. For the ugly for me, and Damien Hardwick hates 50-metre penalties.
Why do you take on him?
Well, they gave away 3 50-metre penalties to the Suns on the weekend. Undisciplined actions. You could see McAndrew gave away one for umpire abuse. I think there was another one later for umpire abuse here. But this one here really would have ticked Damien Hardwick off. You give away 50, you do the crime, you do the time. No one stood on the mark there, and I hope that is not a sign for Damien Hardwick's Suns in season 2026.
Now, worrying signs for me. Ugly signs on the weekend. Okay, a concerning trend for me over the last few years has been the lack of players that pull their socks up. Bucks, you're a socks up operator, I was. These two youngsters weren't. The umpires have got their socks down.
I love it. It's pre-season, Brownie.
No, what's going on? That's a big concern for me, Bucks.
Maybe they are up and they're just short socks.
Now, I got in here early today and I've decided to lab it up. My first lab of the year. Their socks down. Now, boys,
already up.
on the weekend, this is what I expect to see. Pull your socks up, Bumps.
Your socks were already up, you pulled them up.
Bit of me time.
Their socks up. Right.
Well, you should always know, I mean, if you've been working in media and then you go back to Clubland, you should always know all mics are live. And there's a camera.
All cameras are on.
And there's a camera on at every single moment. Have a look at this. His shoes start to grip. See that one just gripped there?
I thought you hurt your back, mate. That's part of your rehab.
Shouldn't be doing that with a bad back.
So never miss a production meeting.
Yeah, that's it.
My bad was Jared Berry in the Pracky match on the weekend. Like, the last thing you want is to cop a falcon at any time, but this was literally 90 seconds into the last Pracky game, and it went straight to Tuke Miller, who kicked the first goal of the game. But Jared Berry not happy, Nathan Buckley not happy.
No, not happy. But I'll tell you what would have Brisbane Lion fans happy, as well as our Jonathan Brown. That is, of course, the back-to-back premiers and the run towards the fire, which will be on 7:30 tomorrow night. Very exciting for all Brisbane fans.
I remember Chris Scott stayed at the hotel that we stayed at. I saw him in the lift the next morning. I walked in and there he was, standing there, the bloke I coached against the night before, and he goes, how's Lockie? I said, I think he's pretty much done for the year, mate. I feel a bit awkward about that now because he actually played in the grand final, but I honestly believe that, and that's what we all thought was going to happen.
Lockie Neal, the super sub.
Well, you mentioned the epic scheduling by the AFL. It all starts Thursday night, 6:30 p.m. live here on Fox Footy. Sydney versus Carlton in opening round. That man there, Jagger Smith, tongues wagged down the Lygon Street. But Charlie Curnow, he returns against his old mob at his new stomping ground. And boys, that is what I am looking forward to in opening round.
Is that a coincidence?
No.
They just happened to fall.
Curnow versus Wiedering. Cannot wait for that Thursday night.
Yeah, be good. I'm looking forward to Sunday night. Flying Ryan and Jack Higgins.
Flying Ryan.
What a combination that's going to be for the Saints.
You might be surprised back at Flying Ryan.
Yeah,
he
looks good call.
Looked good, did you?
Geordie?
Most important.
I'm doing the Gold Coast game on Friday night, so Jamar and Petrarca for me. The
And you get a game now with Jed Walter.
And Walter out, so Jamara plays.
I'm doing the Gold Coast game as well.
I'll
I'm
be
looking
watching the
forward to
backs
that.
closely.
Yeah,
What are you looking forward to, Bucks?
Just getting the cut and thrust again. 1 week at a time, Jack.
1 week. How many times are you going to say that this year?
Let's do it
26?
every Monday night.
Every Monday night. Well,
The unfurling of the flag at the game.
I mean, you
on
put your
Sunday.
preparation in through pre-season and you get a chance to have a look at it.
Good luck. Good luck on Friday night against the Gold Coast. And good luck to our producer, Anthony Bitsalis, and Demi, who got married this weekend. We'll see you next week here on The Couch.